The honourable member for Saskatoon University.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's an honour to take part in this very important and timely debate. I am very concerned about our country, and I hope all of us, all 338 of us, take some time and talk to Canadians over Christmas. Go knock 100 doors. Go find out straight from who we work for what life has now become after 8 long years of Liberal government and the policies that it has enacted and the living hell that Canadians are living through because of these Liberal policies. And today we're going to talk about the carbon tax. There's many terrible policies that they've put forward, but just on the carbon tax and what it has done to Canada. Deputy Speaker, it is with heavy heart reading the statistics of what Canadians are facing. They're facing 30-year high inflation challenges just to live. And what does that mean? It means that Canadians are not keeping up with inflation. At the end of the month, there's more days left than money in that bank account. That means Canadians are skipping meals. We are the breadbasket of the world. I come from a province that grows things, that we sell and feed the world. And we're put into this task by God that we're God-given this land that is able to produce some wonderful crops to feed the world, to feed Canadians. We grow so much that we can't, as Canadians, eat all that we grow. So we trade. We're a trading nation. And that's a good thing, Deputy Speaker. It is what actually sustains families on the other side of the world. And the policies of this government means that there are families starving, not just in far-flung places around the world, but right here in Canada. 11 million Canadians needed food stamps, or the equivalent of food stamps, last year from this government. They could not provide enough for their family to eat. The government had to help 1 in 4 Canadians. This isn't right. This is very, very tough times for Canadians, and it's going to get tougher. And that's more to do with the interest rate hikes and what is going to cause mortgage renewals to do. And they're going to skyrocket. So right now we're holding on by our fingertips. Families are holding on by fingertips. And the tipping point is going to come in the number of months and years as those mortgages get renewed. It also occurs on rental properties, so you know rents are going to go up. We know that it has doubled already, the price of rent in Canada. And what happens when those owners of those buildings have to renew those mortgages? The rents are going to continue to go up. And what we're debating today is a terrible tax. It's a tax on movement. It's a tax on things that we used to do very well in this country. We do things. We're known as a country that grows more canola, more wheat than anywhere else in the world. We build things. We rip out of the ground. We refine. We value add different God-given gifts to our country, and we sell because we can't utilize as much as we can produce in this country, and that's a good thing. That's how, for over 150 years, we've been so prosperous as a nation. And what we have for 8 long years of this Liberal government is an attack on that, an attack with this carbon tax on anything that moves. And it continues to move, you tax it harder. We know they're going to quadruple this tax. What is that going to mean? Well, in the academia and the theory of the carbon tax is if you keep increasing the price, people will stop using that item, and it's faulty. All we have to do is look into other parts of the world that isn't as gifted as we are with natural resources. And the price per liter of gasoline, so you look at Europe, it's roughly around, probably equivalent to around $5 to $6 Canadian a liter. They're still driving. They have to drive. In Canada, we have to drive in order to get to work, to supply for our family. We need to utilize oil and gas to produce the crops that feed the world. And the one incentive or disincentive that this government has decided is that they're going to attack anything that moves, and that's what the carbon tax does. It's a tax on being productive. And you just have to look at what they've done in Atlantic Canada. And in Atlantic Canada, they've carved out a special deal that exempts it from home heating oil. And they've destroyed their argument on why we need the carbon tax. So the government, supported by the NDP, has proposed that if home heating oil is to be exempted in Atlantic Canada, they said it was because it was a cost of living. Well, wait a minute. Didn't they just say that Canadians receive more money back than what they pay? And the rationale for Atlantic Canada is that they're in a cost of living crisis, which they are, and to make things better for that region of country, not all over Canada, but just in that region of Canada, they remove the tax. So wait a minute. Their argument that you receive more back is just been blown to pieces. Because if it is true, then they actually made the cost of living crisis worse than Atlantic Canada. So that's not to be believed to be true. So another argument they said is, well, we're going to make the dirtiest forms of energy for emitting of emissions more expensive. Well, the worst for emissions is home heating oil. So they actually made it cheaper. The one source of energy that they should, if they believed in their logic, should have been costing more. So their arguments is blown out of the water. Now I'll get back to my conclusion of why this all wraps up into this motion is that if we look at the troubles we're facing in Canada, we know that it's tough out there. Anything that the Canadian government can do to make life more affordable, we should act on today. We have a long list of things that the government should have been doing for the last 8 years, but they have decided to ignore those suggestions. But just on this motion today, we can remove the carbon tax off of farmers, First Nations, and families heating their homes. And it is 3 groups that are hurting, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we can affect today. Take off that tax. Instantaneously, food drops because of this tax that is baked into all of the actions of a farmer. If we remove this tax, instantaneously food becomes cheaper. For First Nations, and there's a lot of neglect from this government on reserves, but I can't think of a worse example is that a lot of First Nations and reserves use electricity to heat their homes. And right now, they're jacking up the rate of carbon tax on those homes. These are individuals that are barely holding on with the cost of living crisis that is taking place, and now they're going to quadruple the carbon tax. And the third group is families. And we know they're going to have to pay $700 more next year alone just on groceries because of the carbon tax. That's $700 in sports fees that you're not going to have. Layer it on top of the troubles with interest rates increasing, we know this is a recipe for disaster. There will be Canadians, there will be families that are just struggling now that are going to be starving. And I don't put blame on anyone, but this is a Liberal policy. And the Liberal members of Parliament, it's not their families that are going to be suffering. It's going to be the other families throughout Canada that has a severe challenge with the cost of living, and we can make that all better today. It's not all going to be reduced, the increase in cost because of the policies of this government, but this is one area that if we act as Parliament, we can act before Christmas to make food cheaper, to make life more affordable, to make Canada that much better, Mr. Speaker. And I, for long, if I'm true to the people I represent and the stories I hear, I can't think of another group or any group that has been so challenged under the Liberal policies that we need to provide relief. And this is what this motion does. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.